out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Welcome to 1979-80 Revisited. I think then where we were at to the row markers kind of like played a spooky kind of trick on us this morning, which will come. We've gone all DeLorean and time machines and stuff like that. I'm still thrown by the chimes of doom. Yes, we are on subsection module 1.06, paragraph 2, 1979-80 Revisited, part of our Adidas hold all of content from the Your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating back catalogue. We're moving on to the last weekend in October. We've already covered a little bit of Billy O'Rourke, QPR, home to Burnley, the 7-0 drubbing, and Billy joining Romark in the Hall of Fame, the Your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating Hall of Fame there. But yes, First Division attention now from the same weekend. This is the weekend that ITV can show us some football, Dave. We've had 11 weeks of just match of the day being our television staple. The odd bits and pieces on Sports Night, obviously, during the week. But the regionals, along with the big match, are back up and running. We've got the kick-off match on Granada, and they've picked a goalless straw to for their glorious return. Everton versus Manchester United at Goodison Park. No footage remains, certainly in the ether of the internet, but plenty of fine offerings from the big match this particular weekend. And Star Soccer came up with a corker as well. Wolves against Aston Villa, certainly quite a bit of needle in that game. But turning our attention firstly to Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, White Hart Lane. Tottenham so glad that the TV cameras of ITV are back, that they've even put an advertisement hoarding behind the goal. Welcome them back, Dave.
It's a very nice gesture, as Brian Moore points out from Tottenham, which suggests that the commercial office must have had the week off if they've got a prime bit of space like that available for welcoming ITV back to White Hart Lane. But no, I wonder what Brian Moore's been doing for the last 11 weeks. What he's been
exactly. What's he been doing with his time?
Exactly.
I reckon he'd been watching the end of the cricket season for certain. But yes,
taking the dog for a walk.
Brian Moore is very much back in employment for this particular weekend. Since we last saw them in action away at Crystal Palace, a dysfunctional start to the season, but Tottenham are improving week on week. They've won the last 3 league games at home to Norwich City and Derby County, away at Leeds United, where an eventful game saw Tottenham end up with Glenn Hoddle playing in goal after Barry Daines had to depart the pitch injured. Paul Miller was sent off. They hung on for the 2 points. From a Forest perspective, they failed to win any of their last 4 on the road, losing at Norwich and Manchester City, picking up draws at Bristol City and Stoke City. They remain top of the First Division despite this, on goal average ahead of Manchester United, thanks to their continually imperious home form. Forest are being a bit of a juxtaposition here. They won the first 2 on the travels, but they've suddenly lost the art of winning away.
Very on Forest. They were a particularly good away team, weren't they? That they were set up perfectly for away games. Soak it all up. Hit teams on the break. Off you go with your. I was going to say 3 points. Off you go with your 2 points for your away win and back up to the City ground. So it's odd that they were struggling. Well, not particularly odd that they struggled against Manchester City, quite frankly. Yeah, this one's set up for a really good game, I think. Shame that there's no footage of Glenn Hoddle in goal from the previous match. That would have been a proper return to TV, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think Tottenham now at this stage they're really beginning to come into proper form, into prime form, and the team's settling in. And Keith Birkinshaw, having left his job as a brush salesman on Emmerdale Farm, has really got things moving now.
I hope Dolly's mended a broken heart now. That was traumatic for Dolly. That was Keith Birkinshaw, absolute bounder. For Tottenham, we've got no Barry Daines. He's still injured. So in comes Milia Alexic, Alex Alexic, as he was often known as, or Alex Elastic. I remember him being referred to, certainly in our street in the early 1980s as the 1981 FA Cup final loomed. There is also Don McAllister coming in for the suspended Paul Miller. Jerry Armstrong passed fit on the morning of the game, Dave, despite still recovering from the removal of 4 wisdom teeth in the week. Imagine trying to head the ball with 4 wisdom teeth having been removed a few days earlier. For Forest, Trevor Francis returns. He'd been unavailable for the midweek European Cup action. Ian Bowyer drops down to the bench. The rundown of the teams, Dave, it's Alexic in goal for Tottenham, Chris Hughton, Gordon Smith, Terry Yorath, Don McAllister, as mentioned, Steve Perryman, Osvaldo Ardiles, Chris Jones, Jerry Armstrong, Glenn Hoddle, Ricardo Villa with Colin Lee on the bench. From a Forest perspective, it's Peter Shilton in goal, it's Viv Anderson, Frank Gray, John McGovern, Larry Lloyd, Kenny Burns, I think he's going to have a bit of a quiet and sedate afternoon in this one. Gary Mills, Trevor Francis, Gary Birtles, Tony Woodcock, John Robertson, Ian Bowyer on the bench. 2 strong lineups, Dave, despite who Spurs have got missing.
It's all really set up for a good, really good game. I'm interested in your opinion on the fact that the Forest have turned up and they're wearing all red.
Yeah, I used to quite like it when they were forced into all red. I was highly approving of that.
I thought it was infringement of copyright.
Yeah, I mean, a little. I think because of the Adidas kit and the resplendor of the 3 stripes down the sleeves and down the side of the shorts, it was kind of like a view of what Liverpool's kits would look like if they were under the banner of Adidas, which of course we eventually would be, and even to this the day of recording, actually, Liverpool have actually kind of like the worst kept secret as Adidas are kind of like in football as the billing it today. So yeah, I wasn't too, but like again that ties into me being 4 or 5 years younger than Carl Kopak, who very much bristles at anything to do with Nottingham Forest because he lived the trauma of those Clough having the upper hand. When I switch on 1979-80. Forest lose that knack eventually. Yes, they beat us a few weeks ago at the City Ground, but that's kind of like the last hurrah. Suddenly that Liverpool do remove the needle from the side, certainly from after the League Cup semi-finals later in the season. So yeah, not too bad on my. Ask Carl, and he will absolutely lose his shit. Moving on into the game, just as at Selhurst Park. Against Crystal Palace, Tottenham are fast out of the blocks. They're 1 up within 3 minutes, and it's a wondrous goal. A long ball downfield from Alexic. It's flicked on by Chris Jones. You wince as Armstrong also puts his head to the ball, and then it lands to Hoddle, who the technique is unreal when he makes connection with this as well. He's kind of like it's a bit of kung fu dancing. It's all it's all a bit kind of like Mr. Miyagi. It's where. He's the Karate Kid's hanging in the air and he does the one with the limping leg and all that type of stuff. It's an incredible strike of the ball, and it goes past Peter Shilton like a rocket, who later goes on to claim. Well, I did get a hand to it, to which Glenn Hoddle in his big match interview that's well worth watching. Just kind of like rolls his eyes. Did he? This ball from Alexic belting it downfield. Doesn't touch the ball until it nestles in the back of Shilton's net, Dave.
For all those who don't like the idea of Route 1 football, I suggest you take a quick look at this one because it can be very effective and very aesthetically pleasing. I mean, it is just a big lump down the middle of the pitch from the goalkeeper. There's nothing clever about that, but the way that the headers fall. I mean, Hoddle's technique, as you say, it's off the scale. It's prime Glenn Hoddle. It's seen him do this numbers of times. I think probably the most famous one is that cup game against Manchester United on Match of the Day or Sports Night. But it's very similar to that, isn't it? The ball as the ball drops from Armstrong. I mean, you assume that he's gonna cushion it down and either try and manufacture a cross back in or take a shot from there. But none of that. Just leaps into the air and a scissors kick across the face of goal into the far corner, just off the post and in. I mean, it's a thing of wonder. Jack Grealish would have it in the Louvre, wouldn't he? I would imagine.
Absolutely, he would. It is a work of art, like you say. Route One football can be, bludgeoning at times, but it can be absolutely beautiful as well. And this goal is just unreal. YouTube clacks and go get in there to see this one. And yeah, the flick on. Jones does well, but then Armstrong. I mean, in his interview with Brian Moore, in the studio the following day on the big match, Hoddle says, that Jerry Armstrong had said to him, I didn't see where you were, but I could hear you say, you shouted my name, and I just nodded the ball in the general direction I thought the voice had come from. It is a goal of utter simplicity but genius at the same time, Dave.
The glory of it is there is genuinely no stopping that. If you are playing a move from the back and it's 18 passes and it ends up in the opposition goal, fantastic. But there are 18 opportunities to stop it. Whereas with this one, there's you ain't stopping this under any circumstances at all, really. I mean, it's, the ball in there, once Chris Jones has won the first header and Jerry Armstrong is up to get the second one. And then it's a glorious shot. There's nothing that you can do as a defending side to intervene, really. It's just, it's incredibly simplistic and rudimentary. And, we talk about Watford and Wimbledon and teams like that playing that kind of football in years to come. Neither of them had a Glenn Hoddle to put on the end of it, really. And that then elevates it to something entirely different. But 3 minutes in and Tottenham back into form and properly on the way.
It is very much, I don't know, it's a Bohemian hat put on the head of an Anglo-Saxon, that goal. That's, it's kind of like a beret worn at a jaunty angle by a bludgeoning Anglo-Saxon. It really is kind of like a work of art. And, it's so good that Brian Moore, in his interview with Glenn Hoddle, makes reference to goal of the season on kind of like BBC's Match of the Day. So he even cites the rival TV show that's had it. They've had a monopoly for 11 weeks. So yeah, I'm sure someone would have been shouting down his earpiece, "Don't mention the enemy." But he's gone and done it. And the big match do golden goals at the end of the season, so they've got their own version. But this is, in a season of some absolutely outstanding goals as well. This is up there with the best of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, here we are. What are we? Six programs into this, and we've seen some absolute belters already in the first couple of months of the season. So again, those sort of stereotypes about it being a very rudimentary game back then, and it's all the singing and dancing came in when the Premier League arrived, and we went from black and white to colour and all of that kind of stuff. Just sort of blows all that out the water. I mean, this is just another one of those amazing goals to add to a string of them so far.
Absolutely, it is. It's the only goal of the game, but there's no shortage of other action, Dave. There's a chance it falls to Gary Birtles in response, which he chips just wide. Although the linesman's flag goes up, it looks erroneous raised flag to me. It's a very close call, regardless, but the flag goes up. You've got Trevor Francis really struggling to impose himself on the game. Tottenham fans with very little in the way of sympathy. Plenty of choruses of "what a waste of money" being directed at Francis, who drifts out of the game more than he drifts into this particular game. At the other end, Chris Jones is a constant threat. Multiple opportunities that go untaken. One, he flashes across the face of the goal. He does get the ball in the net and it's disallowed. And then you've got the magnificently mellifluous Kenny Burns doing the most Kenny Burns thing in the world. This is kind of like the most Kenny Burns performance, stereotypically Kenny Burns performance from Kenny Burns. There's one moment, the first standout moment is when he kicks Jones so hard that his own boot flies off into the middle distance. It really is. And then from the resultant free kick, Hoddle rattles Shilton's post.
My favourite bit of Kenny Burns losing his boot is, first of all, he starts to limp for no apparent reason. Then he goes and picks the boot up And instead of putting it on, he goes and he walks back to where the free kick is and stands, sort of bends down to put his shoe on right in front of the ball to make sure that the free kick's not taken. And then straight from that, Glenn Hoddle nearly scores, which would be perfect response, I suppose. But no, this is Kenny Burns properly wound up and at his alehouse best, I think we can say.
Yeah, this is another performance that we've said that Hoddle's goal needs hanging in the Louvre. I think Kenny Burns' performance in this game needs to go up there alongside her. It's an absolute work of art. Hoddle is just magnificent throughout. Ozzy Ardiles, we'd said at Selhurst Park for the Crystal Palace game that Ardiles played the understated role to allow Ricky Villa the freedom to roam. And it's vice versa in this game. It's Villa doing the mopping up most of the time in this one, and he's getting his hands dirty as well. In this too, which is fantastic to see. Ardiles doesn't mind kind of like getting involved as well, which is always great to remember that these fancied on Argentinian international World Cup winners have come along, but they're not adverse to kind. I mean, you can't if you've played in the hurly burly of the Argentinian leagues, you're not going to be a shrinking violet, are you, Dave?
No. There's some proper temperamental moments amongst us. We shall come on to some more of those later on in the second half. But what's interesting is how they kind of work as minders for one another. So if Villa gets kicked, Ardiles is in there haranguing the referee immediately to hand out a yellow card, and vice versa. It's a really nice double act, actually. You kind of forget that aspect to it, but they're there looking after one another right the way through, and there's no shortage of tackles for them to get out agitated about. Not that they're shying dishing it out themselves either, to be fair.
No, not at all. What it strikes you as is the kind of like we'd rather play football, we'd rather than knock the ball around, but if you start a fight, we're up for it. There's very much that kind of aura at play here with Ardiles and Villa. And it's just a wonderful thing to watch. Forest are distinctly second best during this first half, but they are denied what looks like a pretty much nailed-on penalty, Dave. Birtles is brought down by Villa. He properly bundles into the back of him. Our referee, Tom Bune of Surrey, is not having it though, Dave.
You see, I don't think that's fair. Tom Bune of Surrey. I mean, Surrey's a big place. Whereas usually, we're being told virtually, his address. In some of the other ones, this little village that he comes from, wherever. Surrey. I mean, you're not going to find him, are you? Equally, Surrey. It's fairly close to Tottenham.
It is. It's quite close. It's geographically, looking at it and thinking, yeah, I'm not giving that penalty. I only live up the road.
But yes, VAR would have wasted no time at all in reversing that one. I mean, that we would have had that one turned over inside about 30 seconds. That's about as much a penalty as you're going to get. But
likely, yeah, you're right. It's a stunning refusal, basically, to award that penalty. And then it's Jones has his disallowed goal virtually straight after that. It is an afternoon where the officials are, let's just say, having a bit of an off day. Birtles wastes a glorious opportunity to equalise, lobbing an Alexic, but putting the ball wide when clean through on the left, and he looks in an acre of offsideness there, Dave. You're looking for the flag. There's no flag. The officials are clearly kind of like, are they caught in the glare of this late October sunshine? What on earth is going on? Or is it kind of like, I don't know, are they conceding in the mind that actually should have given that penalty? Let's give them a soft offside decision here.
I think there's definitely a bit of that because it's the same linesman for the offside and the penalty. But how Garry Birtles manages to miss that is genuinely
it's stunning. Alexic's comfortably off his line. He has the right idea, lofted over him. It's a goal, but he just puts it woefully off target.
Nowhere near from about 10 yards with the entire goal to aim at. It's a dreadful. It's the kind of effort that gets you £1 million move to Manchester United in about 1982.
It does. Where again, what could possibly go wrong with that? With that transfer, Dave. Ricky Villa has a shot blocked by Burns. As the interval looms. The Forest hatchet man is soon scything Jones down. He's before tangling with intent with Ardiles. He provokes great retaliation from Villa, as mentioned early on. I think there's a bit of a punch thrown by Villa on this one. And brilliantly, the referee just gives the protagonist a stern talking to. And there's a great knowing look as well from Terry Yorath. Nods his approval to Villa over his reaction in backing up Ardiles. And yeah. Well, and this has got absolutely everything, because as soon as the referee shows an interest in Villa just puts his hands behind his back in a kind of like, yeah, I'm listening to you, boss. I know what you're saying here. And soon after, Larry Lloyd goes to the back of Jones. It's got rollerball elements to this first half, Dave.
Yeah, the bit with Villa, with the schoolboy heading to the headmaster's office with his hands behind his back.
The repentant body language is just brilliant.
A fella who famously at that point could barely speak any English at all anyway, and he's nodding away. And then, as you say, Terry Yorath has a look at Villa after all that, and the look he's giving him is clearly.
It's a look of pride, isn't it? There's just a great look of admiration and pride in Villa there. It's this passage of play has absolutely everything, and you've got Kenny Burns lifting his shirt up to show this is where our dealer stamped on me, stood on me.
Yeah, the poor wounded Kenny Burns. But the best of it is, now there would be, I don't know, half a dozen bookings in amongst that. Not a single yellow card to be seen in the whole passage of play. It's an amazing thing, and all the better for it, frankly.
Absolutely. It is truly magnificent passage of football that has to be seen. Of everything we've watched so far, this takes us up to half time. It's possibly my favourite half of football in everything we've covered thus far.
It is a very 1970s, 1980s football. It is the glorious side of every proper physical game. There's some amazing quality with Hoddle. There's some lovely football. There's and also the setting. You've got the shelf on the side, and it's absolutely rammed with supporters. So much so that it almost looks like a bookshelf, sort of bowing in the middle. It looks like it's about to collapse. To be perfectly honest, no wonder they knocked it down and rebuilt it. But it is that sort of Proustian rush watching this game. It does bring kind of everything back from that whole era. It's an amazing bit of football. Then the second half, nothing happens at all. Well, not quite. Nothing happens. That would be unfair. There is one glorious moment we should come on to now.
Absolutely, we should. Yeah, in terms of the football itself, there's very few clear-cut chances. In Tottenham, don't make the mistakes of Selhurst Park where they end up kind of like dropping a point when they should have had the game well won. They close this out without too much of a problem. But it's Kenny Burns again, Dave. This is all about Kenny Burns again. He finally earns himself that yellow card. He's in a phrase that Alan Hansen used in regards to something that would happen later in the 1980s. He is absolutely a mile high and a week late on his challenge on Ricky Villa. It leaves the Argentine's sock and quite probably his shin shredded to the bone.
To be fair to Kenny, he's had to work really hard to get that yellow card. He's had to put.
He's had to earn it. He has properly had to earn that. It's taken something special to eventually get it.
He's nowhere near the ball, not even close to the ball. But it's the fact that he knows that he's nowhere near the ball. He really doesn't mind. He's going to carry on with the tackle anyway.
He's invested. Let's put it that way.
Lands his boot on the top of Villa's shin, and then Villa's falling over. And then he gets up to have a go at Kenny Burns, understandably enough. The referee comes over, Villa falls to the floor in agony. And then when he realises that he's only going to give him a yellow card, Villa's back up again, vehemently protesting to the referee. Again, that is glorious football in every. It's got every possible stereotype in there that you could ever imagine. It's fantastic. Nowadays that's a straight red card and probably a 5-game suspension that tackle. But back then, all in the game.
Nothing of it. The great thing is at the end of the game when the referee blows the whistle, there's no kind of like mad scrum to kind of like settle scores. It's just cordial handshakes all around. And I was keeping an eye on Kenny Burns as well for his post match, routine. And he goes around as many Tottenham players as he can to shake hands. He is charm personified after the final whistle.
I know it's an old cliche, but I mean, it was. We all have a drink in the players' lounge after the game, and it's all forgotten kind of thing. And it was. It's funny you mentioned the bit at the end of the game. The one thing I've noticed with all of these, and with substitutions, there's none of this fawning away to the crowd where you've got to give the crowd a round of applause if you go off as a substitute. You've got to go and stand in front of your supporters and pay homage to. None of that. They just ignored you. At the end of the game, they're all off down the tunnel, and it's like none of the supporters were ever there. I wonder when that came in that they had to start recognising the supporters, because now if a player walks off,
it's there's hell to pay. Yeah, absolutely. But as I remember this era, it was all about the kids running onto the pitch and mobbing the players, rather than kind of players going to the touchline, the stands to applaud.
I suppose that was ended just before this, when all the fences went up, so they couldn't get on the pitch so easy. But all the players shake hands off down the tunnel. That's it.
Absolutely. I mean, Jerry Armstrong as well. His surgeon had come to check pre-kickoff that he felt that he was safe to play and was staying for the game to check up on him afterwards. The bit where they tried to sub him for Colin Lee as well is magnificent, because he initially refuses to go off. He sees his number, he turns and thought, no, I'm going to play thick here. And he stays on, and he actually nearly plays a part in one of Tottenham's best second half moves. There's potential for a second goal there before he actually kind of yields to, go on, I'll go off. Brian Moore in his commentary is concerned enough to state that Armstrong's face is more swollen than usual.
I don't know what that means.
A contemporary player undergoing traumatic, quite traumatic removal of 4 wisdom teeth, and then playing on Saturday. It's not going to happen in 2024-25, is it, Dave?
No. I mean, I had the genuine pleasure of doing Jerry Armstrong's autobiography with him, and he grew up in Belfast, right in the midst of the Troubles, and some of the stories that he told me about that, a few wisdom teeth, nothing.
It's something and nothing. Yeah, but fantastic. Just unreal. Lovely. The big match also showed coverage from ATV's game, Wolves versus Aston Villa, and they also threw in Southern Television's coverage of or brief highlights of Brighton and Hove Albion versus Norwich City. Dave, that Wolves Villa game had a bit of needle in itself. Andy Gray going up against his very recent former employers since his £1.5 million move.
No love lost, was there, between the Villa fans and Andy Gray by that point? And again, that's another change. I mean, obviously, supporters get the needle when somebody moves now, as they did then. But Andy Gray, there's no suggestion that he's not going to celebrate if he scores a goal against
Absolutely not.
He's got to go berserk, and ultimately does when he. But that. I mean, this, of course, is the Molineux Stadium that ended up not being fit for purpose for the first game of the season when Liverpool's game there was.
And you can see all the kind of like the rubble everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it then, and it still doesn't really look fit for purpose to me. There's like a slag heap in the one corner. It looks like a coal mine that's just been left completely alone. And then they've built a stand which is 30 yards away from the one touch line. I vaguely, I mean, it's such a.
I remember it like that. Yeah,
I vaguely remember that they were going to then knock down some of the other bits and move it across. And of course, they ran out.
Yeah, they were going to move the pitch and also shift the pitch along and stuff like that.
And of course, they ran out of money in the early 80s when they got relegated and whatnot, and that didn't happen for ages and ages. But the pitch is just marooned in the middle of this, oasis, because even on the other side of the field, there's a big green boundary of grass before you get to the pitch. It's the most bizarre looking stadium. I don't know what they were thinking. it's a great. I mean, you would be pretty cheesed off if you were in that stand on the far side. I can't remember which one it is now. You're like 30 odd yards away from the action, the nearest bit of action. You think, hang on, what's going on here? It's like being at a cricket match.
It absolutely is. And Bramall Lane was a little bit like that with the cricket pavilion, and all of that. But yeah, such an oddity. Molineux at that point in time. It's Andy Gray that gets the opening goal. He'd already missed a chance put over the bar. Hughes is the instigator of this goal. Fine chip ball into the penalty area. It's Richards' header. There's a fine save from Rimmer from a Jeff Carr cross. This has similarities to Tottenham's game against Crystal Palace. There's a Hibbert header from a parking cross. Wolves are having these chances. Colin Gibson puts a sighter just wide across the bows, but Gary Shaw scores from distance. It's pretty much against the run of play, but it's an outstanding goal. And I know another fine goal to add to the collection of 1979-80 so far.
Yeah, he was sort of coming through then, wasn't he, Gary Shaw? He would be the proper successor, I suppose, to Andy Gray, and it's a terrific goal that he scores. Great player, Gary Shaw, and such a sad loss only a few months ago now, I suppose it was, wasn't it? But in his playing career, he could have gone on to be, something a bit special. Too many injuries ultimately kind of curtailed his career, but he was a smashing player. It's amazing how quickly that Villa team has changed. Because you kind of have the one image in your head of that Villa being John Gidman, Brian Little, Andy Gray, Chris Nicholl, that team. And all of a sudden, it's now a very different team. Des Bremner was a really good signing when he came in, because Des Bremner was an absolute menace to every opposition team. He was everywhere. He would never let anybody play. And then, that Ron Saunders is building what will go on and very shortly go on and win the league and win the European Cup. In no time at all, actually. And funnily enough, at this stage, you were kind of thinking it was Wolves that were going to go on and be the bigger side. They had the statement of intent by Andy Gray for £1.5 million, and the news had come in, and also they go on and win the League Cup in the end. But very swiftly, the Villa are overtaking them. So it's an interesting sort of balancing period. This
it is. I mean, it's a lot of the chat around Gray's departure from Aston Villa wasn't. He stated himself in articles at the time that it wasn't down to a clash of personalities with Ron Saunders, more that he just felt that Villa weren't in a position to challenge for trophies. Gray got this very wide of the mark. In that respect, yes, he would go and pick up a League Cup winners' medal at Wolves. But yeah, he misses out on being part of a league title winning side, a European Cup winning side with Aston Villa. He makes up for it, in the middle of the 1980s with Everton, where he goes and wins significant honours there. But yeah, it's an intriguing one, and like you say, Wolves look set up to be. Dave Thomas is another that they've signed. They look set up to be the West Midlands, West Brom as well. Both of them look far more equipped. Villa looking suddenly like a sell inside, but and this game, Dennis Mortimer as well. He's he's a key anchor in this, isn't he? He's the facilitator in so many respects.
They had such a good midfield. Him and Dennis Mortimer and Des Bremner, they were a really good combination. I think they would probably be as difficult to play against as any midfield in the country. I mean, they're not your Muren and Tyson or Hoddle and Ardiles or whatever, but as an opposition to play against them, you would never fancy playing against that side. But I mean, I think one of the stories that sort of shapes the 80s really is the building of stands and the over ambition of some clubs. I mean, Chelsea, I think, we've got Chelsea in the second division this season, largely off the back of redeveloping Stamford Bridge and the cost of that. And ultimately, that's what's going to do for Wolves. This idea of redeveloping Molineux, which, let's be perfectly clear, was falling down and did need some redeveloping. That just was a milestone around their neck that they couldn't get away from. The Albion had to build a new stand because we wanted more executive boxing. That was a catastrophe in terms of they sold Brian Robson to pay for the stand and never had a team again after that for another 20 years. And lots of teams in that period. Ipswich, in the mid-80s, built a new stand off the back of the UEFA Cup. those good times didn't last long enough. The building of stands took away from what was going on the pitch, and lots of clubs that were, big established first division side in the late 70s coming into the early 80s. By the back end of the 80s, we're having some pretty tough times.
Absolutely were. Absolutely were. But all this is still on the horizon for these two teams. There's glories to come. Very much boom and bust. It will be very much across the decade as we do this. Andy Gray should have got a winning goal in the second half. Rimmer saves it. He doesn't put enough purchase on his attempted chip. But just like at White Hart Lane, the main interest in the second half is violent intent. You've got this clash between Brendan Ormsby and John Richards. Ormsby ends up with a broken nose via a Richards elbow. Ormsby retaliates with a well swung punch that floors the one-time England international. Again, magnificent work of art. Unlike Tom Boone at White Hart Lane, there isn't just severe talkings to and finger wagging and ticking off and go and have a think about what you've done while you play on. Red cards are flashed, Dave.
Red cards indeed, and I mean, these were the days when we didn't give those out like confetti, but I think that it's the drawing of blood that probably decides the referee.
And if one goes, the other has to go as well, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't just send the one off. I've got they're both going to have to go. But I mean, Richards, I don't know how it's not quite clear on the grainy footage if it's intent or just he's jumping up in the air and manages to catch Ormsby with his elbow. But Brendan Ormsby's having none of that. There's a glorious right hook into John Richards' head that sends him straight onto the canvas. And Brendan Ormsby's then look at me nose, pouring out of it. But the referee, no sympathy. Off you both go. Off you go on the probably 2.5 mile trek to the dressing rooms from the Molineux pitch.
Yeah, they'll have all kind of they'll shook hands and made up by the time they get to the dressing room and all patched up, both physically and mentally. Off to the baseball, not the baseball ground, off to the Goldstone ground. Norwich's visit to the South Coast, a 6-goal thriller. 4 goals for Norwich, 2 for Brighton. Steve Coble opens the scoring with a lovely chip. Steve Foster capitalises at a corner. Kevin Keelan error. This game, plenty of goals, but it's not a defensive masterclass by any means of the imagination at either end. Some great perseverance from Gary Stevens and a fine cross tees up Jerry Ryan to put Brighton ahead early second half, but then it's all Norwich. Graham Padden gets the equaliser low to the left of Graham Mosley. Former West Ham FA Cup winner Alan Taylor. He takes advantage of poor Brighton defending. There is more punches swung between Fashanu and Rowlands. There is a red card for Rowlands who lands a punch on Fashanu. Fashanu's physical approach, but without a punch swung, earns him a yellow. And this just plays into giving Norwich the 2 points. Kevin Reeves finishes it all off across from Greg Downs. Again, poor Brighton defending. The result that sends Brighton bottom of the first division with 3 unforgiving fixtures on the horizon: away at Arsenal, at home to Liverpool, away to Nottingham Forest. Brighton are doomed, aren't they, Dave?
It's not looking good, is it?
Even doomed.
It looks like it's going to be a long, long winter on the South Coast.
There is a sense of great misadventure at play here.
Well, given the way that Norwich defended, to still manage to lose 4-2 at home in a game like that is it speaks of a season of horrendous struggle and ultimate return to the second division. Must be.
Absolutely must be. Absolutely. Dave, we've had to fit an absolute action-packed amount of some fine goals, lots of goals, but some magnificent on-pitch violence. We've already touched on headlines and so off in other paragraphs, but we'll save some of the other extras for the next paragraph, which will take us to the Dell and Main Road, which we'll see off the remainder of this action-packed weekend when we've got football galore and goals galore. this is a welcome return to ITV for the screens, Dave.
Imagine having 6 games of football on over the weekend. It's just
the extra cameras that Match of the Day have sent round the corner to Loftus Road as well. And it's been the weekend that's just been the gift that's kept on giving, Dave.
Absolutely. This could be football's future. You know, this could be the way ahead. Show every game.
Overkill, Dave. It'll never take you off.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
be careful of those golden eggs.
That bubble is going to burst anytime soon, without a shadow of a doubt. Dave, thank you so much. It's been a joy as always. Looking forward to the final paragraph of this particular, the last weekend of October 1979, before we lumber on into November, the onset of darker nights and bonfire night, around the corner and all sorts of stuff. Dave, thank you. All that leaves me to do is say, please do listen again. 1979-80 Revisited as part of the lexicon of Your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating content. Do subscribe, for extra content. It's extra long rambling content as well. Do subscribe. Join the army. Thank you and goodbye.